Welcome to the Broken News. I'm your host, Ed Cavett. Today is November 9th, 2020, and what a week has it been. So I've picked some of the stories that I wanted to talk about. I don't know if they're important really to what's going on, but they're stories from the week nonetheless, and they kind of point a little bit to the future. And this first story is going to point a lot to the past. So you guys heard about this Four Seasons landscaping thing? This is why the last 4 years have been an absolute disaster. And the last year, or give or take, has been a disaster. Because if we can't even schedule a press conference at the place that it's supposed to be, I mean, this couldn't have been more of a failure. It absolutely couldn't be. It was nearby porn shops. There was a convicted sex offender in the background of the news conference. There was a crematorium across the way. Just everything about this was ridiculous, was completely nonsensical. And rather than just say, you know what, it's canceled, scrap it, they're going to try to live through this embarrassment. It's like that. You ever see Pee Wee Herman fall off his bike and he gets up and he says, I meant to do that? That's what this is. Unfreaking believable. Can't manage the COVID response? Not surprising. Can't help out with the stimulus pack? Not surprising. Nothing about life is surprising when you see something like this happen. These are the easy things. This is the easy part. Everything else is pretty hard, but this is easy. And you failed. Wow. Unbelievable. Really telling. It's very telling. Next, we got this going on. So we pretty much know who is the president-elect, and it's not the current president, and he's refusing to concede. So is the art of the deal how to be a sore loser? Come on, don't embarrass yourself. This is really sad. This is sad and embarrassing. Absolutely predictable. Nothing about it is surprising. So when people make predictions about President Trump, you kind of have to understand he's a basic person. He's really basic in his drives and his passions. And it's easy to derive from those what he's going to do. So for the last 4 years, everything he's done, people who have been skeptical and critical in their view of the president have been able to predict all of these things that have happened. If there have been any surprises, it's simply the depth of depravity. That's the surprise. So this comes as no surprise. This is going to drag out. It's probably going to turn into an intervention where people are going to be dragging him out of the White House by his hair. So let's see how that goes. Next, Biden's cabinet picks. So let's take a look at who the main picks for a Biden cabinet are. It's going to be these weasels, and probably worse, because they have to get through the Senate. The cabinet picks have to get through the Senate, and it's not going to be like with Trump where everything was on his side, so he could put whatever swamp creature he wanted in the cabinet. If Biden wanted to have somebody like these two, there have been reports, speculation that Warren could be appointed Secretary of the Treasury and Bernie could be appointed Secretary of the Department of Labor. Never going to happen. It will never happen. You're not going to see these two in Biden's cabinet ever. And look at their faces. Could you find hope in that? These two look like they've just been beaten down. It's like you either swim from these sharks or you swim with them. So maybe that explains where they're at. And the duplicity is hard for either side to trust. So they're going to get kicked to the wayside, and everybody who supported them are going to get disenfranchised. So congratulations there. We're going to see these weasels. Oh, man. What is next? Is that all of it? Is that everything? So there's a couple points that I wanted to kind of cover real quick here at the end, and that is that there was 8 years, there's a whole history that led up to President Trump being elected, and a good majority of that history was the last straw of 8 years of betrayal by these establishment Democrats toward the populist Democrats. Now, the populist Democrats are probably like regular people, small businesses, stuff like that, and the established Democrats are like corporatists and the wealthy elite. So there's this betrayal, this divide between those two. So what the Democrats, the establishment Democrats, are trying to do is to pull the populist Democrats into this fold. And they're confused about why that's not working. Change your freaking platform. Stop supporting this corporatist, Republican-esque platform and stop trying to force it down the throats of the Democrats. The only reason why the populist Democrats voted for the establishment Democrats, and some of them flipped to the Republicans, is because of all this betrayal. So we have 8 years of betrayal. It turns pushbacks with Trump, and then the whole Trump betrayal, that's a pushback to, like, it's like we're playing hotbox, like we're running between bases, going back and forth. So maybe in 2024 we're going to see Trump or something like him run again, and it'll be a pushback against another 4 years of betrayal. And then after another 4 years of betrayal, we're going to get somebody, maybe it's going to be Harris and somebody else. So it's just going to go back and forth, back and forth. Establishment Democrats, establishment Republicans. The neoconservative Republicans aren't being represented, and the populist Democrats aren't being represented. And this is where the bulk of your people are. So if you want to know why the election was so confusing, it probably has a lot to do with that, and how we have this mainstream partisanship that's trying to be pushed down the throat of people who are just done with it. So that's going to be interesting how that's going to play out for the rest of my life. All my hopes and dreams are dashed. What was the other thing? There was one more thing. Oh, it was about getting a populist Democratic leader. Somebody who can resist the force of gravity of this massive establishment Democratic kind of form. You try to pull away from that platform, and you just get marginalized and disenfranchised. That's why we see these two, who presumably throughout the primaries, if it wasn't for these stupid coin flips and the super delegates having to kiss the ass of the Democratic establishment in order to get into the DNC, if it wasn't for all of that, those two would have been probably running against Trump. But the establishment has rigged things, so we kind of have to get away from that gravity of the establishment, the corporatists, the wealthy elite. And it doesn't matter whose side you're on. If you're a neoconservative Republican and you want to get back to religious fundamentalism, you really have to get away from the establishment Republicans, because they really aren't. They're telling you what you want to hear, and then they're not doing anything. They're using this hill that we all want to die on as a rallying call to get votes, but they have no intention of doing anything about it, and that hill isn't going anywhere. So it's just like it's a bogus fight. It's like, yeah, join my cause. I really stand for this. And you jump on that important cause that's really not being threatened. And then while you're supporting them for that one issue, they're burying you on every other issue. And that's on both sides. So that's not a sustainable thing. I guess that's the news for this week. It's been crazy. It really has been crazy. I'm starting to slow down a little bit on this, but I'm going to keep this up. We can't, the fight for freedom, the fight for liberty never ends. We make a step forward, and if we don't fight hard, we're going to get pushed back 3 or 4 steps. So it's a constant day-by-day struggle to remain diligent, to remain critical and skeptical, and to voice your skepticism and let people know what is potentially out there. Create some conversation. Well, good luck this week, and thanks for watching. This is Broken News.